This is John Howell Essential Cuts, your daily rundown of the best from today's show on 890 WLS.
Driving the news of the day is the fact that Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is under renewed scrutiny after more potential ethics violations, but I don't think there's any law covering any of this. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, again, is being looked at. ProPublica reported late yesterday that the justice has received a boatload of luxury vacations, rides on private jets and helicopters. There's all kinds of stuff here, and he's neglected to report any of it, but I don't think he's required to do so. Looking at this as it moves the needle in D.C. today is our friend from ABC News, Steven Portnoy, who joins us for a few minutes here on the Big 89. Well, give us some of the details here, Steven.
Well, it's extraordinary. I mean, essentially, ProPublica had to do a dumpster dive here because there is not a list of trips that Clarence Thomas took as the beneficiary of billionaires. Instead, what ProPublica reporters had to do is dive into flight data, emails from airport officials, security detail records, tax court filings, photographs, and more than 100 interviews with pilots and flight attendants and airport workers and the members of yacht crews and ultimately waitresses and caterers to put together a list or an account of at least 38 destination vacations, 26 private jet flights, 8 helicopter flights, VIP passes to professional and college sporting events, usually in the skybox, 2 stays at luxury resorts in Florida and Jamaica, and a standing invitation to one of the most exclusive golf clubs in the country, the Floridian. All of it showered upon Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas without him disclosing it to the American people. And this is raising eyebrows. We've been reading all year about the extent to which billionaires have lavished their generosity upon Clarence Thomas. But what really this report highlights is the extent to which he has been the beneficiary of all of this generosity without having disclosed it to the public that employs him and expects him to serve as a fair-minded justice on behalf of the American people.
Is it safe to say, Stephen, that no laws were broken because there are no laws regarding this?
That's very safe to say, except to say that there is a law that does require the Supreme Court justices to disclose flights, yacht cruises, expensive sports tickets, according to ethics experts in the ProPublica report. But what is it that anyone can do about it is a key question. You know, there are Democrats in Congress who say that the law ought to change to require the Supreme Court justices to live by the same rules as every other member of the federal judiciary below them. The expectation has been that the Supreme Court justices will conduct themselves in a way that is above board, beyond reproach, and that they will disclose to the extent that they feel comfortable doing so because they are esteemed and they are at the height of the co-equal branch of government, and therefore some deference is necessary and appropriate here. But when you look at this list and you see the extent to which wealthy people have been, again, very generous toward one of the 9 people entrusted by all of us to make decisions for the country, it does make one objectively look askance.
Well, we have to talk about ethics reform, certainly, but is there any evidence at all, Stephen, that any of the benefactors, any of the rich who were giving these trips and gifts to Clarence Thomas had anything in front of the Supreme Court?
As I read this ProPublica report, I don't see them pointing out a one-for-one where it's quid pro quo. But the idea that judges and justices would know in advance as they accept a gift that they may one day find one of their friends as a party to a case. The reason why you disclose is so that the public can have a sense of all that. The public can sit in judgment. There's no accountability here, and that's part of the problem that ProPublica is illustrating.
One final question. I know that Democrats are calling for him to resign or recuse himself. How many Republicans have brought up Sotomayor's book sales today?
Well, it's a fair point. I mean, and not just that example, but there are others that you could read about in this ProPublica report. For example, Stephen Breyer, who recently retired, once accepted a flight to a wedding in Nantucket from a Democratic mega donor. Ruth Bader Ginsburg took a tour of Israel and Jordan that was paid for by an Israeli billionaire. But as the story points out, the only reason that we know these things is because those justices disclosed them, and Clarence Thomas did not. I mean, ProPublica literally had to piece together all these things because Clarence Thomas did not tell the public about it.
Steven Portnoy, thank you for the update on the news that's driving the day today. We appreciate your time, sir.
You bet.
You're listening to John Howell, Essential Cuts on 890 WLS.
It's always a pleasure to see, and I ran into him a couple weeks ago during Mike Flannery's retirement party. Governor Pat Quinn joins us now on WLS. Governor, welcome back. How are you, sir?
Well, very fine, John. It was good to see you at Mike Flannery's retirement. Very good man indeed, and you are too, John.
Well,
You're
thanks,
big, John.
Did you notice that I asked Mike's wife if the Emmys that they brought and put on that table if they were parting gifts for the guests? I was going to take one home.
I was wondering why you had two under each arm. It looked like you had loaves of bread there, John. But,
Mr. Carlucci stopped me. He stopped me on the way out. He said, "You really can't take those."
When they were clanking and he noticed that there was something amiss. Yeah.
Not the first time I've been stopped leaving Carlucci's. The old place on Halstead was an old hang of mine.
Okay, well, you're a good man. Nothing like having a drink to end the night. You can't go wrong.
I saw in the papers that you were at Rocky Wirtz's private service Tuesday at high noon at the church on Michigan Avenue. How long did you know Rocky?
Quite a bit. I actually knew his dad, too, Bill Wirtz. But, when I became governor, I went over to a Hawks game and sat with Rocky in the stands. And as everybody has said yesterday and the day before, he was a man of the people. He loved the fans. The fans loved him. Folks came up to him from wherever and just talked to him about hockey and life in general. And, that's the kind of guy he was. I went to the Hawks when they won the Stanley Cup in 2010. I was in Philadelphia for Game 6, and the security guys said, "You can't wear your Hawks stuff in Philadelphia. They'll beat you up," because I was in the stands. But so I put my Hawks jersey underneath my shirt. But in the overtime, Rocky wanted me to come up to his suite, so I went up there and. When Kaner scored the winning goal to, win the game, Rocky didn't exactly see it. I was standing right next to him. He said, "What happened? What happened?" I said, "You just won the Stanley Cup, Rocky," and the rest is history.
What is his impact? What is his impact as a businessman on the city of Chicago?
Well, their family, the Wirtz family, has been very active in real estate and obviously liquor and distributorship and banking. They knew how to work well with others, build a business, and expand the business. When I was governor, we worked with them on a couple of their programs, breakthrough liquors and that, to create jobs. And Rocky was all about making sure people had employment, and then he talked to all the people who worked for their company. Nobody was too small. He enjoyed listening to their stories and visiting with them, and that came through loud and clear at the funeral, and definitely yesterday with all the Hawks there. He was a good man who cared about others. Actually, one time when he turned 60, he passed at 70. But when he turned 60, his family wanted me to come over to United Center, and they had Jerry Reinsdorf there, and they set it up where I would talk to Rocky and Jerry Reinsdorf. They were trying to surprise him, and they had a couple hundred people, maybe 300 people, lining up outside of the office where I was talking to the two owners, and they kept telling me, keep it going. And finally, they gave me the sign that everything was ready, and I know Rocky kept nodding his head as I kept talking and talking, keeping the gathering going. And then he opened the door, and then surprise, happy 60th birthday. So, he's a man, a Renaissance man, or guy who cared about others. Big heart.
Former Governor Pat Quinn is here on WLS. I just want to turn our attention to politics here a second. The most recent corruption trials, the Mapes trial, which started this week, and next year's Madigan trial. Just more of the same? I mean, you had a front row seat for Blago. Are we making any progress here in this city, in this state, in your mind?
Well, I think it's a story of always improving. You can never say we've made enough progress. Clearly, what happened with Commonwealth Edison and that scandal there where 4 people were convicted, and Madigan's trial is April 2nd of next year. I went down to Springfield this past year, John, and I submitted a list of ethical reforms that Illinois needs to pass, including giving voters, everyday people, the right by petition and referendum to propose ethics reforms and laws that are needed. They have that in other states. Ohio and Michigan and Missouri right here in the Midwest have this power where citizens call the shots when it comes to ethics reform in government. And Illinois, when I was down there, Madigan would try to drop kick a lot of things out before he could even get them introduced. He said, no, that won't happen. And now we have a chance to really make reforms, and this year is the time to do it, in my opinion.
Well, Pat, earlier this week in Ohio, the referendum, of course, that was national news. What do you think about what happened in Ohio?
Well, I was pleased to see that voters won. There was an effort by insiders who were in the legislature to try to handicap and kneecap, really, the initiative process there. Ohio adopted the power of petition and binding referendum for the people in 1912. And there was this effort to try and make it harder or almost impossible. And the voters didn't stand for it. They voted overwhelmingly to have that power that everyday people have to make reforms that they think are necessary, even if the politicians don't like it. You can go around the politicians. Illinois, we have a very limited initiative process. I think we need to include ethics for sure in a broader agenda. I'm the only one in Illinois, and since the Constitution was adopted, that was able to get something on the ballot. That was in 1980.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that, Governor. That bled through. Go ahead.
No problem. 1980, the people of Illinois wanted a smaller House of Representatives, and it was called a cutback amendment. We petitioned it onto the ballot. People voted 2-1 for it, and it basically reduced the size of the Illinois House from 177 to 118. Never in a million years would the politicians propose this reform, but the people did, and the people got it done. And I think there's a lot more like that we could do in Illinois with the power of initiative, petition, and binding referendum.
I would love to see something done with redistricting and maybe ranked choice voting. Now, we're talking with former Governor Pat Quinn. As a former Fenwick athlete and former sports editor of the Hoya, what happened to the White Sox?
Well, I was a White Sox fan from, I think, the womb. My mom and dad were Sox fans, and my grandfather was. But this year has been very painful, John. I went to the game last night. We actually won. Going to the game tomorrow night. But we're going to have to back up the truck. They already did with all the trades, but probably more to come. You got to have a team that is a team, that plays together, does other things for players. Move a man from second to third and hit a sacrifice fly. Those kind of things. That's what we did in 2005 when we won the championship, and we really have to do that again if we're going to get it anywhere.
I know Reinsdorf is extraordinarily loyal to his people, but perhaps time for a change with management, even on the field or upstairs?
Well, Jerry Reinsdorf was at the funeral of Rocky Wirtz. They were very, very good friends, and he gave a poignant, a very moving eulogy of Rocky. And, one of the things Rocky was all about was listening to the fans. So, I'm going to see Jerry very shortly, and, I think that's a good lesson that all of us can learn, that if you're a governor or mayor or owner of a sports team, listen to the people who are the ones who are the heart and soul of the organization, whether it's the state of Illinois or White Sox fans or Blackhawk fans. They have ideas and suggestions, and listening is a very powerful quality that can make a difference now and in the future.
You have washed the T-shirt since Philadelphia, correct?
Well, yes, I did. I put the T-shirt on Tuesday at the funeral. I had it underneath my white dress shirt and tie. But after it was over, I went up and talked to Danny, who is Rocky's son. Danny Wirtz is the new head of the Blackhawks. And I unbuttoned the shirt and showed him that this was a shirt. I was with your dad when we won it in 2010, the Stanley Cup. Let's do it again with Connor Bedard and all the new players coming along. And, the people of our state and our city, they care about their teams, and they want their teams to exemplify our spirit and our grit. And I'm sure that'll happen with the Blackhawks, and I sure hope it happens with the White Sox. And, yes, let's go Cubs. They didn't win last night, but we'll see what happens in the next couple months. Bears, don't forget the Bears.
Don't forget the Bears. And finally, when you recorded your beautiful version, that Irish tenor version of the Illinois State song, did you donate the residuals, the royalties you received for that, or do you actually collect checks? I forgot.
John, you know that I sing like water going out of a bathtub, but I do remember the very first words of our state song, "By the rivers gently flowing, Illinois, Illinois." And I was on a radio show. And some guy called up. He was with the Glee Club at U of I, university, and he sang the whole song on the air. So you better call the Glee Club.
You're too modest. Governor Quinn, thank you very much for your time, sir. Have a great afternoon.
Yeah, good to tell you, John. Take care.
Take care.
This is John Howell Essential Cuts on 890 WLS.
Michael Phillips is a longtime Tribune film critic, one of the best in the business. And he wrote a piece on the 30th anniversary of one of my favorite movies, The Fugitive, starring not only Harrison Ford, but I think equally Tommy Lee Jones. And Tommy Lee Jones, of course, he's playing the federal agent chasing Harrison Ford. Set the perimeter, set the perimeter.
Listen up, ladies and gentlemen. Our fugitive has been on the run for 90 minutes. Average foot speed over uneven ground, barring injuries, 4 miles an hour. That gives us a radius of 6 miles. What I want out of each and every one of you is a hard target search of every gas station, residence, warehouse, farmhouse, hen house, outhouse, or doghouse in that area. Checkpoints go up in 15 miles.
There's a lot about that character in this movie in particular that was basically done on the fly. Let's welcome Michael Phillips back to Double Dallas. Michael, how are you, sir?
Oh, I love talking about The Fugitive, and man, I love talking to the director, Andrew Davis. I never talked to him.
I want to get to his story. I want to get to his story, certainly, but just tell me, we were going back and forth here a few minutes ago, is The Fugitive, if not the best, certainly in the top 2, 3, 4 best Chicago movies ever in your mind?
Oh yeah, top 3. I on a good day, if you're in the mood for it, I think it's as a piece of filmmaking, it's better than a lot of the ones that people immediately think of, like like David on the air just recently, the Blues Brothers. It's a totally different kind of movie, the Blues Brothers, which I love a lot of the Blues Brothers. There's not much not to like in that movie, but. The Fugitive is just, you know what that film is to me? It's the kind of film I just wish we could get back to more of somehow, like good kind of meaty action films that aren't made for idiots or 10-year-olds necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. So what's interesting, and I read your piece in the Tribune a couple days ago, is that Gerard, my favorite character, the Tommy Lee Jones character, originally the script had him essentially be behind the murder that was pinned on Harrison Ford. But your director, the man that you profiled in your piece, the guy that did such a great job with this film, Andrew Davis threw that out at the beginning and said, that's not going to work.
They've tried. They had a million different ideas. I mean, they had the rights to the TV series and rights to turn it into a movie for years, and they tried everything. And by the time the director got a hold of the script and got hired, that was the story behind. Okay, the one-armed man. It was that the U.S. Marshal, Tommy Lee Jones' character, is the guy who hired the one-armed man to kill Richard Kimball because Kimball screwed up on operating on his wife. And it's like, A, how the hell is that going to work? B, even this, it just would have kind of ruined the whole Tommy Lee Jones character, I think. What I love about that character and the way it's played is that he's not judgmental at all. He just needs to get the guy. It's his job to get the guy.
Right. I don't care. When Harrison Ford says, I didn't kill my wife, Tommy Lee Jones says, I don't care. I'm just bringing you in.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, I like that a lot. I also really like the way Davis shoots Chicago. You can tell that guy is no tourist dropping in from Hollywood. You know, he's a guy who grew up on the South Side. He knew every neighborhood in this city. I mean, he started his, you know, life in Rogers Park. Most of his childhood and early years, teen years, were all on the South Side. He just knows how to give you stuff on camera and on screen that most people hadn't seen in Chicago. But Chicagoans, you know, not just the parade stuff, but the Chicagoans really appreciate it, I think, even when they don't realize it consciously. I just really, you know, I don't know. And Ford's great in it. I mean, the scene where he breaks down early on. Mm-hmm. If that didn't work, you wouldn't have a story. And you know, that's another one where you had the right director working with the right movie star to say, okay, we got to really act this scene. And I don't know. I got nothing but admiration for this movie.
Me too.
Really
I'm going to watch it again probably this weekend. In those days, this is 30 years ago, there was described, the director said, some fairly harsh violence. But now, as you pointed out, most of these idiotic movies would likely have 3 times the violence, but only 1/3 of the character interest.
Right. And look, you know, you sound kind of like a highbrow when you start talking about, like, well, give me some more character development or whatever. But you know what? When you got a film like that, it's not the same thing if it just turns into a series of shootouts or smackdowns or all that. It just, you know, you need to take the violence seriously at the beginning, and you're kind of ready as an audience to see, you know, 2 doctors trying to kill each other in the laundry room of the Hilton by the end, you know.
Yeah.
And I interviewed Tommy Lee Jones years and years ago, and the one thing he told me is that, you know, they were rewriting every day, every night, getting new dialogue just to explain this plot that they were kind of revising as they went. And there was a scene where Tommy Lee Jones has to just sort of like scream out the explanation of the plot. And he told me, he said that he thought he would literally never work again after that. Because he said to himself, oh, well, I had a good run. I'll never work again. And then, of course, he wins the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor.
How did they come up with the premise, the pharmaceutical scam at the end of the movie? That was the sister of the director's suggestion, correct?
That's right. The whole plot hinges on this drug protocol. And it all started when the director, Andy Davis, said, look, the script I got makes no sense, sis. What could get a doctor in really serious trouble? And she said, let me call you back. I'll talk to some doctors. They talked. And she said, well, you know, I talked to my guy, and he said that drug protocol, and it's like, ding, you know, and then, okay, we can work with that. So they did. It's a little, you know, it's not always like, you know, neat as a pin storytelling in terms of like these motivations and the whole drug pharmaceutical conspiracy going on, but works good enough for me. And by the end of that movie, everything has been working so well. I mean, look, just the train crash alone, which had cost $1 million to wreck that train, and they had exactly 1 shot to get it right. And man, do I appreciate that now, because there's no CGI or no, you know, there's very little fakery at all. It's just like, man, that's just really damn good filmmaking.
Yeah, and then of course the scene outside the Hilton with Bulldog John Drummond was there, Pam Zeckman, I think. My old friend Amy Jacobson was there. That was a smart move by Andrew Davis to get them involved too, albeit just for one scene.
Don't you just love the time capsule aspect of a movie like that? I mean, just to look at early 90s Chicago in every shot where they shot here. And, you know, the stuff the downstate Illinois stuff was all shot in North Carolina. And, you know, that's important parts of the movie. But I really do think this is a great Chicago movie because, you know, majority of it was shot here, and you can just tell it just means something to not just sort of like bop in for a few days to get the skyline, you know, to get and just sort of give it the local color. This really just lives and breathes this town. And I think for me, I put it up there with, you know, Blues Brothers. I probably put it a notch ahead. And I don't care about Ferris Bueller either. I tell you, absolutely.
Yeah, that's overrated. John Hughes, I love you, but that one's overrated. As long as you mention the Blues Brothers, you know, great movie for musicians. In The Fugitive, Gene Barge, who was a great, I don't know if Gene's still with us or not. He was in Big Twist and Mellow Fellows. He's a great tenor player, great jazz player. Gene Barge played one of the cops in The Fugitive.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's stunning. I mean, it's just, there's a lot. It's that, that's the kind of casting you wouldn't have had with a different director.
Yeah,
you just wouldn't have.
What is Andrew Davis? What is Andrew Davis doing now? Is he still working or retired?
He's 76. He's, I think he's working-ish, retired. He's got a novel coming out next year. He's got a couple of, movie projects in the maybe stage. Who knows? Meanwhile, from what he tells me, he's living on a house on the ocean in Santa Barbara. Life sounds pretty good.
It's okay out there.
Yeah. No, he was just really happy to talk about this film. It was just it was kind of a seat of the pants experience putting that thing together and all the rewrites and movies can go wrong so many different ways.
Yeah.
This one, the minute they saw it when it was finished, they knew it had gone right.
Good. Is this his best work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Michael, I got to go, but thanks so much for your time. I love reading you in the Tribune. I hope to call on your talents again.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Take care. Michael Phillips here on WLS.
You never give up, Rachel, do you? You never give up.
You're listening to John Howell, Essential Cuts on 890 WLS.
Now let's go out to Los Angeles. Alex Jones is watching what's happening in Hawaii. The magnitude of this wildfire in Maui specifically. Did I say Jones again?
Yeah, you might have.
Holy mackerel. Alex Stone, I'm sorry. The magnitude of this wildfire specifically in Maui is becoming clearer as now 36 victims are confirmed dead. Now let's get the latest from Mr. Stone, not Roger Stone, Alex Stone, who joins us now in WLS. Alex, what's the latest?
Hey there, John. Yeah, so it really continues to get worse as the news keeps coming in. So as you mentioned, at least 36 dead. We're going to get an update later on tonight from the governor, and that number they believe is going to go up. But Lahaina, the town that if you've been to Maui, you've probably been to Lahaina, just south of Kaanapali, where the big resorts are, where there's a Westin and a Sheraton and a big Hyatt and some other hotels. That not only is Lahaina the tourist area, but home to 12,000 people, a lot of Hawaiian history. It was the original capital of the Hawaiian kingdom. There's a giant banyan tree downtown that is usually a tourist attraction in itself. That has burned, and the town is, for the most part, gone at this point. And there are the missing, like we see in any disaster. We talked to a guy today who he took shelter in the Pacific Ocean. He said, like a lot of people did, that he has bad burns. They couldn't. They were in an intersection trying to get away. The flames were everywhere, so they got out and ran into the water. He has not seen his girlfriend since. She is missing. There are others who are missing. Steve Scott looking for his wife.
I think she's safe, but I haven't found her yet.
Yeah, so at least for Steve Scott there, he believes his wife is safe. For the other gentleman, doesn't know where his girlfriend is. Today, the conditions are better. There was a little bit of rain earlier today that helped out. They've got 80% containment around the fire that moved into Lahaina. So the flames aren't the problem much anymore, but now it's about sifting through what remains, finding the bodies, no cell service, no power in the area. And so tourists now are being emptied out of their resorts, being told to get on buses, and they are bringing them to the Maui airport and dropping them off there. And told that they will get a flight at some point. Evacuation flights are now flying in, and the mayor of Maui saying they got to get them out.
Flights on various airlines they were brought over empty, and they left with tourists seeking either to go back to the mainland or to go to Oahu.
But a lot of people don't know where they're going to go. They're just getting on a plane, and whether they go to Honolulu or they go to L.A. or San Francisco or Seattle, they don't really know. But United, Southwest, Delta, American, Alaska, so they're all flying in empty planes right now full of diapers and food and emergency supplies, dropping that off, picking up people, getting them out of there. And it is like a refugee center at the Maui airport right now with people sleeping everywhere. They're just being dropped off, and they have nowhere to go. And a lot of people don't know when they're going to get out, but it is a mess.
So you mentioned the rain, so there's no danger of any new wildfires?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say no danger, and technically there are still 3 that are burning on Maui, but they've got containment up to 80%. The winds have died down. They got rain this morning. The activity of the fires is no longer what it was on Tuesday when it went racing through Lahaina. So for the most part, the risk is no longer the flames, but It is now finding out what the flames did on Tuesday and just how bad it was.
What help are the feds sending?
Well, a lot of help. FEMA, the president today declared a presidential disaster declaration, but active duty military are helping out both with recovery and rescue efforts, but also putting out the flames. The National Guard is part of it. A lot moving in.
And they're pretty confident. I know it's early, but they're confident that these fires started naturally, yes?
Well, and naturally in the sense of power lines coming down, they think. So the number that they have right now, 29 power poles came down in the 80-mile-per-hour winds this week. That is typically how the big fires in California started, the deadly ones, the ones in 2017 in the wine country, the Paradise Fire, I think a year later, that killed so many people in California. It's always down power lines. They think in Hawaii probably the same thing.
How many were killed in Paradise Ballpark? That was a couple dozen people, wasn't it?
Oh, I would have to look it up. It was, I can find it real fast. I think it was 80.
Oh, a lot.
Yeah.
There was nowhere to go there. The fire came in from multiple directions, didn't it?
Yeah, 84. No, 85.
Wow.
85 victims in that fire.
And 36 as of
36
right now.
as of right now. Here again, the mayor of Maui says they think it's going to go up.
We're continuing to go through. There have been casualties. We have found, our people that did not make it through this fire.
They think that when they brief tonight, it probably will be higher, and it'll probably be going higher for a couple of days. The other thing is there are people who they're cut off in the roads where they can't go to the airport, they can't get back to their condos or their hotels, and they're stuck. Julie Ramsey's one of them.
48 hours ago, we were enjoying our time in Maui, and we went the morning, I think it was Tuesday morning, we went to play golf in Pukalani, and then we couldn't get back to our Honokauai condo. So we've been in the car for 36 hours now.
They have been living in the car for 36 hours. She says the local Hawaiian population has been what she says angels, that they have been delivering to them in their car food, baked goods that they've been baking for them, toiletries that they need, that rental car, that is their home right now. They don't know where they're going to go, how they're going to get out, but they're stuck there.
And the focus right now is still rescue or recovery?
It is both. I mean, it's mainly rescues at this point, trying to still get people out. Recovery will begin as FEMA begins to get in. Really, the focus at this point, though, is getting tourists out, because this time of the year, where still a lot of families are there, the islands are full. I mean, just jammed, where you can't get dinner at night on a normal night. You can't get a hotel room. Hotel rooms are in thousands of dollars a night. They got to get those tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people out. And that is the evacuation effort going on at the airport right now.
Alex Stone, I know you have to go. Thanks so much. Sorry I screwed up your name.
You got it. I'll be Alex Jones.
Okay. Take care. Don't say that anymore. Take care. Let's see you. I don't even, and that happens to me once in a while, Kim. I think I've screwed up your name in the past. I apologize for that. I don't even listen
to the best of us.
I don't listen to Alex Jones nor Roger Stone. I used to have Roger Stone on a number of years ago. It was the same thing every time I had him on. He was begging for money. But why in the last few times I've had Alex Stone on that I've mentioned Alex Jones? I think it's because the Howard Stern show, which I do listen to, has such a terrific Alex Jones impersonator. I think that's what's sticking in my head right now.
Very well could be.
But Alex Stone. Tyler, next time I screw that up, it's $20 for everybody in the control room.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
We will mark that tape and play it every time.
John Howell, Essential Cuts. Check back every weekday for another episode of John Howell, Essential Cuts on 890 WLS.